What's going on, everybody? James here, ReadOptionAgency.com, Urban-Picker.com, 24 years selling full-time on eBay. And today I want to address a comment, something I've never really gone over myself, and that is how you keep track of cost of goods. Now, in my eyes, there's really only one way to do it, but I'm like, well, is that the right way to do it? Right? Is it how? Who am I to say if it's right or wrong? So I decided to ask ChatGPT on top of it. And they gave me exactly how I do things, and they gave the pros and cons of each. So I'm going to break it all down to you on keeping track of your actual cost of goods. Now, the comment I got on YouTube was... Oops. They kind of changed things on YouTube here a little bit. So, all right. So the comment reads, "What no one reseller has explained to me how they keep track of the dollar amount of their death piles, and how does a death pile even occur without losing track of the cost of the items, when they were bought and where they were bought. I'm using an automated system like Flipwise to enter in my data, and they want this information. I feel like an idiot watching these resellers be able to make piles of like items to knock out with AI, list easier, when I'm keeping all my different sales separate so I don't screw up my cost." So when I read that, the first thing I'm thinking is you're thinking too individual. You're thinking this item costs this much, this item costs that much, this item costs this much, when you don't have to do that, right? That's too complicated, especially if you're trying to grow a business. All the IRS is worried about is how much you make and how much you sell at the end of the day. And that's all you need to worry about also, for the bottom line. Now we're going to get into the details of what ChatGPT says here, and then I'll go into a little bit more details on why I do it a certain way also. So I put in ChatGPT the question, when reselling, is it better to worry about the actual cost of an individual item or the actual amount you spent as a whole? And why I asked it like that is because that's how I do it. I don't worry about how much I paid for a certain item, because at the end of the day, you either bought that item good or you bought that item bad. You make your money when you buy. No matter what you paid for that item, it's not going to change what the value of that item is on the resale market at that particular moment. You understand what I'm saying there? So here we go. Tracking the cost of an individual item. So this is what I'm thinking you do. The pros to that, you know exactly what each item owes you, right? Easier to calculate net profits per sale. Okay, so you know you bought toy X, you know what toy X sold for. So that, to me, that's time consuming. Helps when repricing, you won't accidentally sell something below cost. This kind of goes with what I'm saying. No matter what you paid for, it's not going to change the value of the item. It's going to only be worth what somebody's willing to pay for it and what they're selling for at the moment, right? So it's kind of pointless to buy something for $5 and it's only worth $7, and you're going to price it at $13 just because of what you paid for it, right? It's just going to sit there. The next pro, using it useful if you're sourcing varieties of lot, thrift store one day, bulk buy the next. The cons, time consuming if you buy large lots where per item cost is hard to assign. And that's another reason why I don't use it. I've always bought by lots. Even on yard sale days, I'm going out to buy as much as I can for as little as I can, right? So what I pay for each individual item, what I paid for that item doesn't matter. What I paid for that item doesn't matter. I do an average. I spent X amount today. I used to do this. I don't anymore. I spent X amount of money today. and I bought X amount of items, divide those together, and that's your average price per item that you spent that day. Can get messy if you buy in bulk and then some items get tossed, broken, or bundled. All right. The second is tracking the actual spend as a whole instead of the individual items. The pros to that, much faster. You only record the total cost of the haul, right? And that's all I worried about. My goal when I was doing it was, okay, I spent X amount of money on this haul. I want to get it back as quick as I can. Let me cherry pick those items out, get those listed, and then go from there, right? And that's how death piles of stuff for me backed up, because I would buy way more than I could list, but I was always trying to get my money back as quick as possible. The next pro, makes sense if you buy bulk, 50, e.g. a $50 yard sale box with 200 items. So instead of worrying about what you paid for each item in that box, you know you paid $50 for that whole box. Let me pull out 5 items I can sell for $10 and get my money back. So that's the way I always looked at it. Next pro is you know your overall investment versus total sales, which is the true bottom line. And as I said before, the bottom line is what matters. That's all the IRS cares about, is how much you made and how much you spent. It's easier to measure return on investment and cash flow over time. 100% there too. Instead of breaking it down one item on one item, break it down on one cost times or divided by items. And then you can do that over time and see if your average stays the same. You might come to find out that, okay, say you only do yard sales on Saturday mornings, and every Saturday you seem to average the same cost per item. Because you can also keep a running, for your own personal information, a running total of your cost of goods. So then say you do 4 Saturdays in a month, yard sales, you spend X amount of money each time. One week you averaged $1 per item. The next was $1.50 per item. The next was $1.25 per item. Well, at the end of the month, you know that you've got about $1.25 in every single item you bought last month. So you don't have to really keep track of, oh, I bought that item and what did I pay for it, because I need to get a certain amount out of it, right? You're worried about too small of details of stuff. You need to worry about the bigger picture over. Like I said, this is if you're growing your business. You're constantly trying to buy, constantly trying to sell, and you just want to keep growing. Doing an individual item is way too time consuming. Practical approach, most resellers use a blended method. Assign an average cost per item for bulk buys. That way you can track profit per sale without overcomplicating things. Exactly like I've been stating here. So, high value items, if you spend more individually, say $30 on a pair of Jordans, track that specifically. And that could be a good way to do it too. You've got one super great item, and that's it's going to bring you the most money back. Worry about that item individually. Overall spend, always track your total sourcing spent each month versus total sales, because that's the real indicator of business health. Again, at the end of the day, all that matters, what comes in, what goes out. Let's see what else here it says. In short, if you're a high volume, low cost reseller, media, clothing, bulk buys, focus on overall spend with the average cost per item. This makes me feel good because it makes me feel like I was doing right when I first started, when I had no clue what I was doing. If you're a low volume seller, high value reseller, sneakers, collectibles, electronics, track individual items cost carefully. So yeah, if you only buy 5 items a week, then it's pretty easy to know what you paid for each item. But from what the comment you were making, I think you're going to fall more into a higher volume where you just need to worry more about the individual average as opposed to the individual item. How I keep that simple is I only have two ways of buying product. That is with a credit card, one business card that's only used for business, because that's all you should be using it for. And if I take cash out of my business account. Now, doing that, say say on a Saturday you take out $400 to go find some yard sales. You know how much money you have. Keep that money separate from your personal money. Never mix the two. Go out, spend like crazy. Buy what you want to buy. You come home. How much cash do you have left out of that $400? Well, that's how much you spent. How many items did I buy? Count them up. Do the math. Then you know how much you have in each item, right? And like ChatGPT said, if there's one high dollar, high value item in there, pull that one out and do it separately, right? So that's going to be your best way to do it. And then what I do on those yard sale days is I'll take a Post-it note, put spent $400. No, well, I took out $400. I spent X amount of money, right? I bought X amount of items, do the math, and then that's my own little receipt. Put the date, the time, whatever on it, and that's my receipt, just like you would get from a store. It accounts for the money you took out of your bank account. That being said, you only spent $200. You still have $200 left. Put that $200 aside and use it next Saturday, right? But don't account for it until it's spent. That's the way I do it. And then when that's the only thing that my tax person will email me and goes, I see you took X amount of money out at an ATM. What's this for? And then I will respond back and say it's for product I bought. So then he knows exactly where it needs to go when he's doing the taxes. If you're doing them yourself, you know where to put them in, like say QuickBooks and stuff. I don't know how your FlipWise works and stuff like that. That might be a too detailed of a program than you really need. If you're trying to be more of a volume as opposed to 5 items a week type of seller. But I don't know how that's set up, so I can't really comment on that. But that's the gist of it. Don't worry about what an actual item is, because it's not going to change what it's going to sell for. Do an average. Averages are better in my opinion anyway, because say you made a new contact, right? And you know you're going to overpay for this stuff a little bit because you want to build a contact here so this person will always come back to you. So next time you know you're going to get them cheaper, right? So you might pay a little bit more for these certain items. When I'm in that situation, then I go out of my way to find cheap items elsewhere to bring that average back to where I want it to be. So your average ain't up here. You go and buy something here, brings the average here where you want it to be. So there's a lot of positives when it comes to worrying about the overall average of something. And then also too, you're going to know at the end of the day, if you keep track of this month after month, you're going to know how your spending is. The stuff you buy, you know what the average price per, say you buy trinket X's, and that's what you buy the most of. We'll say somebody comes up with a collection of trinket X's that want to sell you these for. You know what you average pay for them. And your bottom line is going to tell you on your business, your bottom line is going to tell you if you're making money or you're not making money. So if you know that you average 70 cents per trinket X, and this person's saying, I want $2 for trinket X for his collection, you know that you only pay 70 cents. I'll offer you 70 cents per item, and then you know that you're in a safe zone. Again, that is if your bottom line is reading you in the plus. So it gives you more information overall, gives you more freedom, and it doesn't take up as much time to keep track. Because at the end of the day, like I said, all the IRS is worried about is the money in, the money out. So the only thing you need to worry about at the end of the day is the money in, the money out. So, all right. Hopefully that helps answer that question a little bit. I know I kind of suck at explaining this. That's why I put it in ChatGPT to kind of help me out explaining it a little bit better. So I ain't all over the place like I usually am. So, yeah. So that's it. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you all in the next video.